Hello, everybody. How are you? We are back. We are doing the book club. And today we are going to be reading Catherine Emmerich's Visions. And we are doing Mary. Now it's the birth of Mary. The last two ones that we did was getting up to this. Now is the birth of Mary. So it's a little bit longer than our usual reading. So hang in there, guys. Okay. Several days previously, Anne informed Joachim that the time of her delivery was at hand. She sent messengers to her sister Martha at Sepphoris, also to the widow Enu, Elizabeth's sister, in the valley of Zebulun, and to her sister Sobi's daughter, Salome, the wife of Zebedee of Bathsheba. The sons of Sobi and Zebedee, James the Greater and John, were not yet born. Anne sent for these three women to come to her. I saw them on their journey. Two of them were accompanied by their husbands, who returned, however, when they had reached the neighborhood of Nazareth. Joachim had sent the men servants off to the herds and had otherwise disposed of the domestics not absolutely needed in the house. Mary, Kelly, Anne's eldest daughter, now the wife of Cleophas, took charge of the household affairs. On the evening before the birth of the child, Joachim himself went to his herds in the fields nearest his home. I saw him with some of his servants who were related to him. He called them brothers, but they were only his brother's children. The pasture grounds were beautifully divided off and hedged in. In the corners were huts wherein the servants were provided with food supplied from Anne's house. There was also a stone altar before which they prayed. Steps led down to it, and the space around it was neatly paved with triangular stones. Behind the altar was a wall with steps at the sides. The whole place was surrounded by trees. Joachim, after praying here a while, selected the finest lambs, kids, and bullocks from his herds and sent them by his servants to the temple as offerings. He did not return to his home before night. I saw the three women approaching Anne's abode toward evening. When they arrived, they went straight to her apartment back of the fireplace. Anne embraced them, told them her time drew near, and standing intoned with them a psalm. Praise God the Lord. He has had pity on his people and has freed Israel. Truly, he has fulfilled the promise that he made to Adam in paradise. The seed of the woman shall crush the serpent's head. I do not remember all verse for verse, but Anne rehearsed the different types of Mary and said, the germ that God gave to Abraham has ripened in me. The promise made to Sarah at the blossom of Aaron's rod are fulfilled in me. During all this time, Anne was shining with light. The room was full of glory, and over Anne hovered Jacob's ladder. The women around her were amazed, entranced. I think they too saw the ladder. And now a slight refreshment was placed before the visitors. They ate and drank, standing, and toward midnight lay down to rest. But Anne remained up in prayer. After a while, she went and rose the women. She felt that her time was near, and she desired them to pray with her. They all withdrew behind a curtain that covered an oratory. Anne opened the doors of a little closet built in the wall. In it was a box containing sacred treasures, and on either side lights so contrived that they could be raised in their sockets at pleasure and rested on upright supports. These lamps were now lighted. At the foot of the little altar was a cushioned stool. The box contained some of Sarah's hair, which Anne held in great reverence, some of the bones of Joseph, which Moses had brought with him out of Egypt, something belonging to Tobias, relics of clothing, I think, and a little white, shining, pear-shaped cup from which Abraham drank when he received the blessing from the angel, and which was later on taken from the Ark of the Covenant and given to Joachim along with the blessing. This blessing was like wine and bread, like a sacrament, like a supernatural, invigorating food. Anne knelt before the shrine, one of the women on either side and the third behind her. Again, I heard them reciting a psalm. I think that the burning bush on Horeb was mentioned in it. And now a supernatural light began to fill the chamber and to hover around Anne. The three women fell prostrate as if stunned. Around Anne, the light took the exact form of the thorn bush on Horeb, so that I could no longer see her. The flame streamed inward, and all at once I saw Anne receiving into her arms the shining child Mary. She wrapped it in her mantle, pressed it to her heart, laid it on the stool before the relics, and went on with her prayer. Ken?
Then I heard the child crying, and I saw Anne drawing forth some linen from under the large veil that enveloped her. She swathed the child first in gray and then in red, leaving the breast, arms, and head bare. And then the luminous thorn bush vanished. The holy women arose and in glad surprise received the newborn child into their arms. They wept for joy. All intoned a hymn of praise, while Anne held the child on high. I saw the chamber again filled with light and myriads of angels. They announced the child's name, singing, "On the 20th day, this child shall be called Mary." Then they sang, and I heard all these words. Anne went to her chamber and lay down upon her couch. The women bathed and swathed the child and laid it by the mother. Next to the bed was a little portable basket crib furnished with wooden pegs, by means of which could be stuck into holes on the right or left or at the foot of the bed as might be desired. One of the women went and called Joachim. He entered, knelt by Anne's couch, and his tears fell in torrents over the child. Then he took it up, held it aloft, and intoned a canticle of praise like unto that of Zachary. He spoke words expressive of his longing now to die, and he alluded to the germ given by God to Abraham and perfected in himself, also to the root of Jesse. I noticed, though not till afterward, that Mary Healy was not among the first to see the child. She must at this time have been for some years the mother of Mary Cleophas. Still, she was not present at Mary's birth, because the Jewish custom does not permit the daughter to be with the mother at such a time. When Mary was born, I saw her at one, and the same time before the most holy Trinity in heaven and on earth in Anne's arms. I saw the joy of the whole heavenly court. I saw all her gifts and graces in a supernatural way revealed to her. I often have such visions, but they are for me inexpressible, for others unintelligible. Therefore, I am silent with regard to them. Mary was also instructed in innumerable mysteries. As this vision ended, the child cried upon earth. I saw the news of Mary's birth announced also in limbo, and I beheld the transports of joy with which it was received by the patriarchs, especially by Adam and Eve, who rejoiced that the promise made them in paradise was now fulfilled. I also saw that the patriarchs increased in grace, their abode became lighter and less constrained, and that they began to exercise a greater influence on earth. It was as if all their good works, all their penance, all the efforts of their life, all their desires and aspirations had at last brought forth fruit. All nature, animate and inanimate, men and beasts were stirred to joy, and I heard sweet singing. But sinners were filled with anguish and remorse. I saw especially around Nazareth and in other parts of Palestine many possessed souls who at the hour of Mary's birth became perfectly furious. They uttered horrible cries, and they were tossed and dashed about. The devils cried out of them, "We must withdraw, we must go out." My greatest delight was to see the old priest Simeon in the temple on this night of Mary's birth. He was aroused by the fearful cries of the possessed, confined in one of the streets on the Temple Mountain. Simeon with others had charge of them. He went that night to the house in which they were and asked the cause of those shrieks that roused everyone from sleep. The possessed man nearest to the entrance cried out fiercely that he must get out. Simeon released him, and then the devil cried out, "I must go forth, we must go forth. A virgin is born, and there upon the earth so many angels who torment us. We must go forth, and never again shall we dare possess a human being." Then I saw the poor creature horribly tossed to and fro by the devil, who at last went out of him. Simeon was in prayer. I rejoiced greatly at seeing old Simeon then. I saw too Anna the prophetess and another one of Mary's future teachers in the temple, aroused and instructed in vision upon the birth of the child. They told each other what had happened. I think they knew of Anne. In the country of the three holy kings, certain prophetesses had visions of the birth of the Blessed Virgin. They told their priests that a virgin was born, to welcome whom many spirits had come down upon earth, but that other spirits were troubled. The stargazing kings also saw pictures of it in their stars. In Egypt, on the night of the birth, an idol was hurled from a temple into the sea, and another fell from its place and was dashed to pieces. Next morning, I saw a great crowd from the neighborhood around the house, along with Anne's servants, male and female. The women in charge showed the child to them. Many of them were very much affected, and many wicked hearts were changed. They had gathered around the house because they had seen a light over it during the night, and also because of the birth of Anne's child was looked upon as a great blessing. Later on, other relatives of Joachim from the valley of Zebulun arrived, also the servants from a distance. The child was shown to all, and a repast was prepared in the house. On the following days, people flocked in numbers to see the child Mary. Her little cradle, which was in the form of a boat, was placed upon a raised pedestal, something like a sawing jack in the front apartment. The lower coverlet was red and the upper one white, and on them lay the child swathed in up to the armpits in red and transparent white. She had tiny golden curls. I also saw Mary Cleopas, the child of Mary Healy and Cleopas, the grandchild of Anne. She was then a little girl, if only a few years. She was playing with an infant, Mary, and caressing her. She was a stout, healthy child. She wore a little white sleeveless dress bordered with red, from which hung tiny red balls like apples. Around her little bare arms were twinned rows of white stuff, maybe feathers, silk, or wool. The child Mary had also a little transparent scarf around her neck. So, hold on. This is a very short one, so we're going to continue. The child receives the name Mary. I saw a great feast in Anne's house. It was all was gladness. The wicker partitions in the front of the house had been taken away, and a large room was thusly made ready. All around it ran a low table, upon which stood plates, glasses, etc., but yet no eatables. In the middle of the room was an altar covered with red and white, and a stand upon which scrolls were laid. A small basket cradle stood on the altar. It was shaped like a shell and woven in white and red. The coverlet was sky blue. Priests from Nazareth were present in their sacred vestments. Among them was one robed more magnificently than the rest. Many of the female guests, relatives of Anne, were also in their holiday garments. Among them were Anne's eldest daughter, Mary Healy, a spouse to Cleopas, Anne's sister from Sepphoris, and others. Several of Joachim's relatives also were present. Anne was up, but she did not appear. She remained in her chamber behind the fireplace. Inu, Elizabeth's sister, brought the infant Mary swathed as described in red and transparent white, and gave her to Joachim. The priests approached the altar, and attendants bearing the chief priest's train, and prayed from the scrolls. Joachim placed the child on the arms of the chief priest on the altar. Then he took a pair of scissors furnished with a little box at the end for catching the clippings, something like a pair of snuffers, and cut a little hair from both sides and from the middle of the child's head. The hair thus removed, he burned it upon a pan of coals. Then he took a box of oil and anointed the 5 senses of the child. With his thumb, he pressed the ointment upon the ears, the eyes, the nose, and the mouth, and the heart of the child. He wrote the name Mary on a scrap of parchment and laid it on the child's breast. Then the little Mary was, by Joachim, given back to Inu, who took her to Anne. The woman stood back during the ceremony, at the end of which other psalms were sung. I saw then all kinds of table, furniture, dishes, etc., that I had not before noticed. There were vessels on the table that were quite light, their covers pierced with holes. I think they were baskets into which flowers were put. On a side table, I saw numbers of little white rods, as if of bone, also spoons. there were also bent tubes lying on it, but I know not for what use. I saw no more of the meal itself. So, okay, you were saying.
Okay, so something that stood out to me about the birth of Mary, that first reading, was Mary Healy. Mary Healy was an older daughter. Yeah, she was the first daughter of Anne,
I know.
Mary, that ended up staying with Anne's mother, right? Because remember when she moved, she left her daughter with Anne, Anne's mother. So the grandmother raised her pretty much. But
Oh,
when Mary was when Anne noticed that the time was near, she called these three women, one of them being Mary Healy,
not
which
on the phone, I'm sure.
huh?
Not
Oh
on.
yeah, I know. Well, however they did it, messengers, pigeons, I don't know what they used, but they used something in those days. Messengers, I think they were messengers or whatever. Anyway, so Mary Healy, it says here, was the wife of Clopas. And that brought to mind later on Mary at the cross with two other Marys. One of them being Mary. I don't know how accurate this is because this is just in my mind, right?
No, but it makes sense.
Mary and Mary and Mary and Mary, one of them being wife of Clopas,
Right.
which that was the mother of the James, the lesser James or whatever they called that they thought was Jesus's brother, but wasn't.
Right.
So they were extremely close. They were cousins.
But why is
Because Mary has
why is
Jesus.
Anne
This
calling two of her daughters Mary and Mary Healy?
I don't know. Mary was a popular name in those days, I guess. I don't know. There's a lot of Marys. There's a lot of Marys,
But
girl.
two in one family?
Yeah.
Like
Well,
both of your daughters were Mary.
if you think about it, Miriam,
Right.
Moses's sister,
Right.
right? So being from those, they're looking at the stories of Moses and the Psalms and the this and the that they're praying with Psalms. That's why it's so important to pray with Psalms, guys, because Psalms was what Jesus grew up praying. So it's like, wow, we're praying the same prayers that Jesus prayed. But anyway, that's another topic. So anyway, that kind of brought it to mind. Those names just kind of stood out to me. So just I kind of kept them in my mind. And then also the color white and red. Mary's was dressed in a lot of white and red.
Yeah.
Red little bells hanging. I guess the bells were little plants or something. And
Tassels.
yeah, it brought to mind Moses's time because when they dressed, some of the garments or whatever that the priests, how God, when he came down and he gave a message to Moses, was very precise what was to be made and how and what they were to wear. One of them, if you look at them, had the hanging little bell thing. So that kind of stayed in my mind thinking, oh, so, it's from those days, and they're still using it now because how far from Moses and the birth of Mary, how many years were they, do you think?
Oh gosh.
From Moses to the birth of Mary. Well, anyway.
I think at least 1,000 years.
Really? That
I
much?
thought that. Oh no, because they have his stuff. No, it couldn't be that long. I really don't know.
Why don't we Google it real quick? Why don't you pause with Google?
Let's pause and Google. And don't let me forget I have something. So we can't really find anything except generalization. Some say 1500, some say 120. So it's really, we don't know. But in there, they said there were bones, that they had things from Moses. So I don't know. But let me just get to this first. We're going to come to that part about the bones of Mary, of them. But let me just talk about this. First, of course, here it says the seed of the woman shall crush the serpent's head. And the germ that God gave Abraham has ripened in me. The promise made to Sarah and blossom of Aaron's rod are fulfilled in me. During this time, Anne was shining with light. The room was full of glory. I can just imagine the heavens just sending the light into that room. And the room was full of glory, and over Anne hovered Jacob's ladder. Where does Jacob's ladder go? Straight to the heavens, right? Like, can you just see that room bright and then this ladder to heaven?
Wow. Yeah.
Oh, anyway, yeah, you were gonna say.
And another thing that popped out to me was how she just was in her arms. So it's like she didn't really have any pain either, it looked like.
No, she
didn't have any struggles or anything.
No, she did. It was different.
And just out of nowhere, the Mary was in her arms.
She just didn't document that. That's all we didn't hear.
Yeah.
But she was not born, she was not an immaculate conception.
Oh no, I know, but I'm just saying it was kind of odd how all of a sudden she was in her arms. But I guess that the other stuff wasn't documented.
Oh, you're talking about Mary.
Yeah, when Mary was born.
Well, Mary was an immaculate conception. So I thought you were talking about Anne. So Mary, you're right. Mary was an immaculate conception.
Well, Mary came out of Anne, and out of nowhere, all these women, one's behind her, two are on each side of Anne, and all of a sudden it says that there's baby Mary in her arms.
Well, the thing about Jesus coming in that said it was like light through glass is because he had a body that had different properties than, say, Mary. Mary was fully human. So I mean, she was an immaculate conception, but I think still they just didn't document, that.
Okay. Oh yeah, of course that's possible. It just kind of stood out to me, but yeah, that's definitely possible.
Yeah. But anyway, so the women around her were amazed because remember, the room fills with glory. I'm assuming means this bright yellowish lightish light. And then over Anne hovers Jacob's ladder. What does that symbolize? That Mary is is the path to heaven through Jacob's ladder. So I just love that. And mostly because I wrote a poem called Jacob's Ladder. My brother was doing a basement for a woman. He was doing it for free because he did cement work, and during the winter he didn't work. So he was doing it as a nice thing for his neighbor, which he was very kind, my brother. But he also was an addicted person. And so trying to stay up all night, he took this, it was a natural thing. I forget what they call it, but it increases your heart. And the mayor of one of Florida's towns died from it, or his daughter did or something. Anyway, it was like a thing people were using for weight back then. And I guess my brother was trying not to, maybe it was speed, and maybe they just said it was this thing because he did.
Dexatrim?
No, it wasn't it was a natural supplement. But anyway, he said he was taking those. Oh, I had talked to him about him taking those about 2 months before it happened. And I said, Harry, don't take those because the daughter or something of the mayor just died from those. And he's like, ah, no, he didn't listen, So I don't know if he was taking that or he was taking speed, because he lived in Philadelphia, and that was at a time where that was big back then. And he was an addicted person. But in any case, he ended up in a coma, and my mother was distraught, obviously. And she went up there, and she was up there for like 6 months, sleeping in the hospital. I mean, she would not leave his side. She got him up and out. They said he would never breathe on his own again. And my mother was like, ugh. When he heard that, he did wake up. When he heard that, he looked at my mom like, what? But he couldn't get up at that point. Well, my brother had been a weightlifter, and he was huge, like really built, which is why they say he didn't die, because he was so muscular, and for whatever reason he had a strong heart because of his working out. But in any case, he also did cement work. In any case, him and my mother, they willed him up, and he got off of that breathing machine, and he once again was started. It was a long road, though. I make it sound easy. It was not. But in any case, he during that time that he was in the coma, I wrote a poem called
Jacob's Ladder.
I think it was called Jacob's Ladder. It's called Jacob's something. Jacob's Well. And it was a beautiful poem, so I'm going to include it. But anyway, yeah, so that's what it reminds me of. And that was around the time I started getting interested in the Bible. So I think it's interesting that Jacob is the ladder to heaven. You know what I mean? It just, to me, that was just so beautiful.
To Jesus through Mary.
Right. So I just think it's interesting that Jacob's ladder was there. Okay. So then Anne remained up in prayer. Another thing, prayer was very, they were as much in prayer as we are. And after a while, she went and roused the women. She felt her time was near, and she desired them to pray with her. So when she's in labor, what is she doing? Praying. I just think that's beautiful. Every pregnant woman, we should talk about, before they go into prayer, before they go into labor, there should be special prayers for that. There must be somewhere. We need to find some. So she felt her time was near. She opened the door and contained little sacred treasures. And these little treasures, I don't know what they were, but a little altar, a cushioned stool, some of Sarah's hair. Now, for Sarah's hair to survive, like, and bones of Joseph, which Moses had brought out of Egypt, something belonging to Tobias, relics of clothing. Sarah's hair, does hair last 1500?
Yeah, I think so. When you see the
1500?
skeletons, you see kind of like the
Well,
bones.
that's
You kind
true.
of see
1500 years.
hair.
Yeah, you're right. 1500 years, though, I don't know. But I
I
guess
don't know.
bones
Don't
do.
know.
Bones do. And when you think about it, if they lived 100 years supposedly back then, that would have only been 10 generations if it's 1,000 years. So, I mean, it's possible, but that's what struck me there. So then, let's see. They were reciting a psalm, and then what you said something about we should, when we talk about the Psalms. Yeah, that was very, what did you say? You said something about the
Well, Psalms were the prayers that from way back there then, and that's how they prayed. They would memorize. The Jewish people to this day have all the Psalms memorized. And I know, especially from the show, one of my favorite shows on Netflix, Shitzel, which is the life of a Jewish family in the Holy Land, which is an amazing show. Everybody should watch it.
How do you spell
it? You can see the
how do you spell it?
Shitzel. I think it's SHITZOL or something like that. I'll look it up for you and tell you. It's on Netflix. And it's the whole story of a Jewish family, very devout Jewish family. And there you'll see all the traditions, all the things they do. They show it in that show. It's amazing, beautiful show. And anyway, there you'll see them that they don't really say, oh, you know, this place you're going to is 2 or 3 blocks away. They say, and this really stood out to me until to this day, they would say, oh, it's, Psalm 115 away, or Psalm 50 away, whatever, that's so many Psalms away, or such a Psalm away,
Oh,
or
wow.
because they would be praying the Psalms in their mind as they're walking. And
Wow.
that's how they
Yeah, and
that's how devout the Jewish
and,
people are.
and that's how the rosary started, from
Exactly, from the Psalms,
yeah.
Saint Dominic. But Jesus was raised, Joseph taught and prayed with Jesus the Psalms. That's what he was raised on, the Psalms. Jesus was praying the Psalms constantly. So when we pray the Psalms, I like to think, oh my goodness, this is exactly the words Jesus used at one time or another in
Oh,
his life.
that's beautiful.
So it's just, Psalms are very
You're
special.
right, Jeanette. Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah, and then down here, so here they had all these relics, and the flames streamed inward, and at once I saw Anne receiving into her arms the shining child Jesus. I don't know what the flame that streamed inward was. Flame and fire, what is
Signs of the Holy Spirit.
Right. And Saint Catherine of Siena said something, set the world on fire or something. I can't remember. It's the most important thing and I can't remember it. You know the one I'm talking about. Be who you were meant to be and you will set the world aflame, or something like that. And it's about the Holy Spirit, like you just said. So the flame streamed inward. So not just the light of heaven, but the flame streamed, like at Pentecost, which we're going to be coming up on soon, supposedly, according to the homily we listened to on Easter at Natalie's church, it is the second most important after Easter. After Easter is the Pentecost, and then Christmas, in that order. Easter, most important of the Catholic year liturgy season, and then Pentecost, and then Christmas. So I was like, wow, here's the Holy Spirit streaming inward. So then she wrapped her in a mantle and laid it on the stool before the relics and went on with her prayer. Again, the baby's born. What is she doing? Praying. So those are the things that really stood out to me. And then you were talking about Anne draw forth some linen from under a large veil that enveloped her. She swathed the child first in gray and then in red, leaving the breast and arm head bare, and the luminous thorn bush vanished. The holy woman arose. So I could just picture this. It was a beautiful, it was beautiful. And then when they described the portable basket crib furnished with wooden pegs, which could be stuck into holes at the right or left at the foot of the bed, which I think is so interesting because a lot of people, especially in Europe, I watched this Russian minimalist girl, and her husband made a special bed that attached to their bed. And it was just like, wow, they do things differently there. And I was imagining something like that. And then Joachim came in and he cried. And I thought that was beautiful because, a lot of fathers do cry when their babies are born. Neither of my children's fathers cried, but I just thought that was beautiful. So then when it said that it said she must at this time have been for some years the mother of Mary Cleopas. Still, she was not present at Mary's birth. So Mary's sister was a lot older than her. No, she wasn't older. Mary Healy was not among the first to see the child. She must have at this time been for some years the mother of Mary Cleopas. Okay, so yes, she was much older, according to this. So, but still she wasn't present at Mary's birth because Jewish custom does not permit the daughter to be with a mother at such a time. That's interesting. My son Joe was 4 and I wanted him there. We had a whole suite, like an apartment at the birthing suite at Booth Maternity in Philadelphia. We had a whole apartment, and him and my brother was there when my sons were born, and my mother, our whole family was there. They were in the room. They saw my, my innards. And because we just, I just thought that I wanted them to be there. Just like I was at my brother's daughter's birth. Not his son's, but I was at her birth. And so was my husband. We were in a room though next to it and could see through glass, but we saw the baby immediately. But in any case, so I thought that was interesting. They didn't permit it. And then when Mary was born, I saw one at the same time before the Holy Most Trinity in heaven and on earth in Anne's arms. You know how they say on earth is Mary, Joseph, and Jesus as the earthly Holy Trinity, where heaven, it's a little different. So I just thought that was interesting that she saw that in her vision. I saw the joy of the whole heavenly court. I saw her gifts and graces in a supernatural way revealed to her. And then she actually sees that Mary was also instructed in mysteries. Like Mary had knowledge that a normal human didn't have because God was preparing her from day one, because he knew she was going to say her yes. She did have free will, but he knew all. So I thought that was
he knows what we're going to say before we even say it.
Yep. So here all of nature, men and beasts, were stirred in joy and sweet singing, like the whole earth knew. But sinners were filled with anguish and remorse. And I think of the possessed. She was saying many possessed souls at the hour of Mary's birth became perfectly furious and uttered horrible cries. And the devil, they couldn't stand to be on earth knowing that she was there. They're like, we must withdraw. Of course, they came back once they got over it. But I just thought that was interesting. And then here's Simeon, where isn't Simeon the same one who says your heart will be pierced?
That's him.
And he was an old man. If you look at the pictures that we have of him,
and also Anne is in there too. The Anne that also told her that that was told that, her. Well, she was there waiting to see the child, and she was the one that acknowledged that. Yeah, that was him.
Okay,
it was that widow that was praying forever, waiting on the Messiah, and then she's like, now I can go peace because I've seen.
Okay.
She was also there.
Okay. So Simeon, he actually blessed Jesus. He was there when Mary was born, right there, not right in there, but very soon. And here he was with Jesus. So then we get to where was it that stood out? Mary was in the form of a boat, and later she's the mother of the church. And in every church, if you don't know, there's always wooden ceilings, because that's supposed to be the bottom of the boat that we are all in. And her crib was the form of a boat.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
Yeah, and placed upon a raised pedestal. So I thought that was beautiful. But then here, this got confusing. I saw Mary Cleopas, the child of Mary Healy, and Cleopas, the grandchild of Anne. So there's no doubt that Mary Healy is Anne's. And I think, why would someone name two daughters Mary? So I just thought that was interesting.
Okay, so it says Mary Cleopas, the child of Mary Healy. So Mary Cleopas, was that the one that was standing by the cross?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
I
saying.
don't know. That's
Right?
kind of, I don't know. We're going to have to ask Natalie to listen to this and to tell us what she interprets, because she's a little smarter than us for stuff like that.
Well, I don't know that she's smarter, but she has.
Well, she sees things a little better than we do, like
Yeah,
parallels.
she reads a lot too. So anyway,
She's our Jeff Caven or Scott Hand
eh,
of the group.
okay, so here it says she wore a little white sleeveless dress bordered with red, from which hung tiny red balls like apples. That's what you were talking about. The costume, you remember, you were
That
talking.
must have been so cute.
Yeah.
Just so cute.
And then
She had white and she had blonde hair too.
yeah. And around her little bare arms were twinned rows of white stuff. So her little tiny arms had little fuzzy white. I just thought that was interesting. It said maybe feathers or silk or wool. And the child Mary also had a little transparent scarf around her neck. I think of my Mary scarf. Anyway, so that was beautiful. So then we got here to the child receives the name of Mary. And I thought that was interesting because names are very important in what's it called, in Judaism. They and God changed names and this and that. So I thought that was interesting. And then here they give an entire ritual to naming the child. Like a boy gets circumcised, they place the child in the arms of the chief priest who, but here she's just getting named. And so Joachim placed the child in the arms of the chief priest, prayed a while, laid her in the cradle on the altar. He took a pair of scissors furnished with a little box at the end for the clippings, something like a pair of snuffers, cut a little hair from both sides in the middle of the child's head and the hair, and burned it on a pan of coals. Then he took a box of oil and anointed the 5 senses of the child. And I'm like, oh, I want to look that up. With his thumb, he pressed the ointment upon the ears and eyes, the nose and mouth and the heart of the child, and he wrote the name Mary on a scrap of parchment and laid it on the child's breast. And I just thought, it's a whole ceremony. The woman stood back during the ceremony.
Remember how John the Baptist, how they had to do the same thing? They put the name on a paper or something like that.
Oh, I didn't remember that.
It was the priest that did that.
Oh wow, I didn't remember that.
Zechariah, I believe he's the one that had
intricacies in the Bible that I don't always catch. And we look at Natalie because she was our teacher as an authority, and I don't know how much of the Bible she studied, but she's
very knowledgeable of the Bible. Yeah.
Of the Bible, yes. So she might be able to tell us a little something on this naming ceremony. So then Psalms were sung. So here again, the Psalms, Jeanette, that you talked about.
Yeah, see, Psalms were always present.
Yeah.
And that's why they're so present in our Mass.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in every single Mass. We have the Psalms. And, the songs that we sing in our Mass are taken from the Psalms.
Yeah, and every day
the Psalms are extremely important.
Every day we do a responsorial psalm. So, and then here she says something about bent tubes lying on it, and she didn't know what that was for. So I'm curious if that will come up again. I saw no more of the meal itself. Apparently it was something for the meal. I don't know. So we looked up the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and here's a beautiful painting. And I don't know, I've never seen this painting before, but this is supposed to be Mary. And then Mary Healy, if you look here, Jeanette, this is the painting of Mary's birth. So who do you see? Who do you see? These two are the grandparents, maybe, I don't know, or this is the father, Joachim. So this might be Anne and Joachim, and then all the children are around. So one of these must be Mary Healy, one of the adult women.
These are angels. They got wings.
Oh, this says angel. You're right. These are angels. What am I saying? I thought maybe one of these would be Mary.
No. Those are all angels.
So
and up there, it looks like that's Anne
here's
and
Anne and Joachim.
Joachim, or else,
Mary.
yeah.
And here's
Joachim looks a lot like God would look in my eyes, anyway.
no, but it's
Yeah.
Joachim and Anne. And here's baby Mary. I've never seen this before.
That's such a beautiful portrait of baby Mary.
I'm gonna put it up. Yeah, I'm gonna put it.
That.
I'm gonna put a link to this. Okay, so it says the Catholic Church celebrates the birth of Blessed Mary on its traditional fixed date, September 8th. I know December 8th, I always think of her. But it says 9 months after the December 8th of her Immaculate Conception. See, I always think of December 8th, but I never think of September 8th. But now I will, because that's when Mary was actually born. So I just thought that was beautiful when we found this article. And then it says the circumstances were not directly recorded in the Bible, but we looked up somewhere, and I think it was a Protestant resource, and it said James, what was it, James 5 or something, because it mentions Mary's parents' names. So I'll put that in as a reference to the Bible this time. Let me write that in. I think it was James 5. I'll look it up again. So this was, it talks a little bit about this, so I'm going to put the article here. We have to go pretty soon because Jeanette is going to mass. Here it talks about the photo.
I don't think I'm going to make it, so don't worry.
Oh, okay.
It's at 8:30 and it's 8:20. I won't make it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I'll go tomorrow. That's fine. Okay. I'll go to the 9 o'clock rosary.
Oh, okay.
It's right after Mass.
Yeah, so here it says the Protoevangelium of James, which was probably put in the final written form to the early second record. So I don't know if I don't know why this is called the Protoevangelium. Maybe you do, or Natalie does. Which was probably put in its final written form in the early 2nd century, describes Mary's father, Joachim, as a wealthy member of the 12 tribes of Israel. So that's how we know, that some of these things besides the naming, So, so I think this article is interesting. It said that Joachim and Anne began to devote themselves extensively and rigorously to prayer and fasting, initially wondering whether their inability to conceive a child might signify God's displeasure with them. As it turned out, however, the couple were to be blessed even more abundantly than Abraham and Sarah, as an angel revealed to Anne when he appeared to her. So I don't understand if they are worried about conceiving a child. They had Mary Healy as an older child. So I don't know. So that that confuses me here. But remember, that's her vision. So maybe they're not aware of that. So yeah. So it says, after Mary's birth, according to the Protoevangelium of James, Anne made sanctuary in the infant girl's room and allowed nothing common or unclean on the account of the special holiness of the child. So they're aware of the special holiness because God gave them and told them. And also, remember Jacob's ladder was above her head to heaven, and nothing unclean is allowed into heaven. So I just thought that is interesting. So
That's a good article. You should post that link
yeah,
below so people can read it.
yeah, I will.
I'll read it later. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very interesting.
So anyway, yeah, so it was a very good reading today, and I'm glad.
Also, before we go, you guys are interested in learning everything you can about Mary and the Jewish roots and customs, and Anne and Joachim, they're all in here. This is one of my favorite authors, Brant Petrie, Jesus and the Jewish Roots of Mary.
It's also an Audible, which is where we first heard of that. Remember, I got the Audible and you listened to it? We listened.
Awesome.
Yeah, so then Jeanette has to have the book too, which is good because you can look back at it.
Yeah, I like to reread. I like to highlight, and when I'm thinking of something, like I could see if I would have pre-read this, guys, I could have looked up in here where it talks about Anne and Mary's and the birth.
Yeah.
Somewhere. But
Here it says the James Protoevangelium goes on to describe how Mary's parents, along with the temple priest, decided she would be offered to God as a consecrated virgin for the rest of her life. So since she was a baby, she knew that. That's what confused her when the angel came to her, and enter a chaste marriage with the carpenter Joseph. So they had always planned to have a chaste marriage. A lot of virgins came together as back then it was considered very, very holy, just like with priests now do that. So Mary and Joseph had always planned that. And then look here, it says St. Augustine described the birth of Mary as an event of cosmic and historic significance and an appropriate prelude to the birth of Jesus Christ. She's the flower of the field of whom bloomed the precious lily of the valley. The 4th century bishop whose theology profoundly shaped the Western Church's understanding of sin and human nature affirmed that through her birth, the nature inherited from our first parents is changed. And that's true because she has Jesus. And that's why that image of Jacob's ladder. So anyway, it was a beautiful reading. Jeanette, let's say goodbye. Jeanette is not here. So, and I have nothing more to say. Jeanette, are you not coming back or what? She's probably getting ready for her going to the rosary. Here she is.
Yeah.
I
gotta go.
Yeah, so she has to get going. But in any case, Jeanette, anything else you want to say?
No, that's we covered it awesome, I think. And again, if you guys are really interested in this subject or any other subject we have, look it up, Google it. There's so much awesome. We're so fortunate to have our phone at our hands. I mean, we have the Bible at our hands all the time. You don't have to carry a gigantic, heavy Bible. It's all in your hands, in your phone.
Yep.
So
USCCB has the entire Bible as the book. You just go on there and then you go to books.
You can listen to Mary's whole thing on Audible, like you said earlier, in your car, driving back and from places. You can listen to Bible in a year. You can listen to Catechism in a year, like we do. And little by little, this will all start staying in your mind. So in the future, you can evangelize, knowing, feeling confident. Hey, I know this. I remember this. I can share this with people. You got to be careful. You can't just go around evangelizing and saying what you think. You got to make sure you're saying it the right way, because it's in the Bible also, that the people that share Christ to others are held more accountable than those people that don't know or share, because we're sharing and we got to make sure we're sharing accurately. So we do our best, guys. And
but you can always say, like I do, I don't know the details. I always say Jeanette, or I think of because a lot of details that I don't know, just like today, the things that you're saying. So I always ask Jeanette, do you remember this or whatever? So you can always ask your friends who are maybe more detailed. So
and it makes interesting conversation, guys.
It's the best conversation to have.
conversations about Jesus and the Bible and his life and Mary and things that you
That's
just
what I told my grandson.
recently learned instead of gossip, instead of
I
going,
tell
you know,
my
and doing,
grandson,
saying,
surround
well, I don't
yourself
have
with
anything to
holy
talk about. If I can't gossip, what am I going to talk about? That's what people want to hear. I go, well, then maybe we're around the wrong people because we love to
Surround
talk about.
with holy people that are on the path to heaven.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah.
And less chance to sin. If you're all focused on God,
Yes.
and if you say that rosary, or that one that we're doing, St. Bridget, for a whole
Yeah. The 15
promises.
15 prayers of
Yeah, the
St.
15
Bridget that we're
prayers.
doing daily.
The promises are that
Yeah.
you will get perfected in the
Yeah.
first thing, which is vocal prayer, which is very important to me, because
Yeah.
I
You
always
can
say
do it in the car, guys. You can do it on YouTube in the car, the 15 promises. You can do the Divine Mercy at 3 o'clock when the alarm beats.
remember
If
it
you're driving,
if you keep
throw it
doing it
on.
every day, just like Mass, you'll remember it if you keep
Yeah.
doing it every day.
You can set a timer like Hannah and I have at 3 o'clock. It goes off, and they're like, "What?
Yeah.
Oh, Divine Mercy. Okay. You want to? Do you
In
want
the
to stop and
movie.
do it? Sometimes we're together. Sometimes I'm with
Yeah.
another friend. Most of the friends I'm with are Catholic, so they're like, "Oh, what is that? Divine Mercy, right? Yeah, let's do it real quick. Okay,
By the
great.
way,
There you go.
this Thursday night we're going to a Divine Mercy thing. It was only $10, and Natalie and I signed up. I don't know if you're coming, San Pedro. They're doing a thing on Divine Mercy at 7 o'clock in the evening.
Okay, you have to send me the link because I had a hard time signing up for that Torin. That I couldn't sign up for it. I don't know how. For some reason it's not on there. So I don't know. Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.
Bye. Have a blessed day.